Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Yesterday we saw these two verses.
Dee, I wanted you to just tell me between subjective and objective. I had
Okay,
joined late actually.
no
The
worries. We'll just
difference.
go.
The difference.
Yeah, yeah. So still people are people, which is the reason Krishna, the king of Dwarka, praised as an avatara, an incarnation of Ishvara, had to set an example and perform action. So I think the subject object came here before that. I think that was in
That is verse 24.
25, 24 or 25. No, yeah,
24 and the third para, I think. The second or the third.
no worries.
Yeah. Only that the difference. That's it.
Right. Just give me 1 second. I'll just be back. Utsideyurikan na kuryan karma chedaham sankarasya cha kartasya mupahanyami ma prajaha. So if I were not to perform action, these people would perish. I would be the author of confusion in the society and I would destroy these beings. So aham, I, karma, action, na kuryam chet, if I were not to do, ime, these, lokaha, people, utsi deyuhu, would perish, cha, and sankarasya, of confusion, karta, author, syam, would be, imaha, these, prajaha, beings, upahanyam, would destroy. So aham, karma na kuryam chet, इमे लोकाः उत्सीदेयुः च संकरस्य कर्ता स्याम इमाः प्रजाः उपहन्याम. So if I were not to perform action, these people would perish. I would be the author of confusion in the society and I would destroy these beings. If Krishna performed no action and the people followed him, let them follow, one might say. The problem is that they would destroy themselves in the process. If the people have innumerable likes and dislikes, and they do not perform the actions that will fulfill them, what will happen? Because they have no viveka, no discrimination, they will become insane, which is what destruction means here. There is no destruction for a human being other than insanity. Everyone, normal and abnormal, is born of ignorance and error. And because there is very little difference between the empirical, the objective, and the subjective, this ignorance and error can lead to madness, there being a streak of madness in everyone. This is why it is said that the line between sanity and insanity is a very fine line indeed. If you see an object, you do not see it as objectively as the object is, because there is always a certain subjectivity involved in the seeing. Therefore, it is very difficult to distinguish between subjective projection and objective appreciation. I will read further and we'll come back to discuss, okay? A sane person is one who has some objectivity, while an insane person is more subjective. He or she also has some objectivity. I think that's a typo, like Dr. Mara said. A sane person is one who has more objectivity, while an insane person is more subjective. He or she also has some objectivity. An insane person eats bread and not rocks, just as a sane person does. This much objectivity he or she has. Problem is that such a person may feel persecuted, for example, when in fact he or she is not. There may be some objectivity, but because there is a lot of subjectivity, we call the person insane. Even a person who is very objective may have some degree of subjectivity. But because the objectivity is more predominant, he or she is called normal. The person may expect that money will provide security, an expectation that cannot be described as very objective. Another indication of subjectivity is when the person does not take people as they are and instead projects his or her own fears upon them. Thus, the difference between those we describe as normal and those we call insane is not very much. The insane person is more subjective than objective, and the sane person is a little more objective than subjective. Insanity can occur with the increase of one's subjectivity or the decrease of one's objectivity. It does not take much time and is what is meant here by destruction. So the whole point about the subjective objective is that, see, each of us has the example that was shared yesterday was that of say a gulab jamun, which is kept there. It is an object, right? Now, how do we see that? Two people looking at it, one one person who likes sweets can look at it with a lot of, um, with a desire to eat it. Whereas a person who does not like sweet, how the jamun, he will look
Voice is breaking, Brahmaraji.
to
Voice,
eat it. That
voice is breaking.
is my full. Was the voice breaking for a long time?
No, no, just till Gulab Jamun, it was all right after that.
Is it okay now?
Now it's okay, Brahmaraji.
Okay. So the person who likes it versus the person who does not like it. The gulab jamun is gulab jamun. You look at it only as a gulab jamun without your likes and dislikes, then you're being more objective. You're more a normal person, a sane person. Whereas the more subjectivity that brings in when you're looking at things outside, when you're looking at a thing as an object, so there is, you're being more and more insane. So, for example, a person who likes sweets a lot, but supposing he has diabetes and he's not supposed to have it. So, what will be his state of mind? He wants to eat it. There is no viveka coming in there, right? So, what he's being more subjective. So, he's actually more insane than sane, because his desires are based on, or his actions are based more on his own ragas and dveshas rather than using his discrimination.
Yeah. Gurudev always says, life should be based on your commitment, not on feelings, he says.
Not on commitment, exactly, not on convenience, not on feelings.
Yes, yes, yes.
So this is only a small example, but when you extrapolate it, like for example, you're looking at a person, you're looking at, say, a friend of yours, that just looking at that friend might trigger a lot of, you might project a lot of things. Like you have been very close, and you've seen them in the mall, and they don't apparently look at you, and then you say, oh, he or she has not smiled at me. So you start putting your projections on that, on you looking at the friend. Say, oh, look at him or her, he he or she is not giving me a face, not giving me, is not responding the way I want them to respond. So basically our fears, likes and dislikes are projected in the way we look at the world. Then you're being more and more subjective. That means
Thank
you're more and more insane. Whereas the more objective you are, you're looking at things as they are. There is no fear, raga, dvesha that you're imposing upon when you look at things. Then you are being more and more sane. You're being more and more objective. Now, every person, normal or abnormal, is born of error. That is what was the earlier paragraph. So is born of ignorance and error. So there is an element of um, subjectivity and objectivity in both, but the proportion to which there is varies. So even a person who is normal, a sane person, has some degree of subjectivity. For example, if he or she thinks money is going to give me security, so that means you're imposing security on money. But is that really true? Does money really give you security? That is only temporary. But what gives you true security is that the is your true self, right? So it's only an illusion that money gives us security. Like the current situation here in Bahrain, people are being evacuated from their houses because of whoever's living in affected areas. So what are they taking with them? What is more important? Life is more important. So whether or not they take their furniture, their belongings, all that is left there. The only thing they carry with them is maybe they are just important papers, and that's it. Some of them don't even have that time to collect their important papers. So life is more precious than any of this. So when you look at it that way, there is a very fine line between being subjective and objective. That is what is meant here when they say there's a fine line between sanity and insanity. I hope it's clear, Simi.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you so much.
So same thing, if you're more subjective, the problem is that such a person may feel persecuted, for example, when in fact he or she is not. So we build our own stories in our mind. And the more stories we are building, the more subjective we are. Oh, that person is thinking ill of me. He or she said this. Oh, this must be it. So we are simply, kamaka, we are building up stories in our mind. So that means we are more and more subjective. And there is loss of objectivity there. Performing action as an example to others. Therefore, Krishna told Arjuna in this verse, if I do not perform karma, these people will definitely destroy themselves. Krishna was not talking here about being in charge of all the three worlds. Lokaha usually means worlds, but here it means people. Krishna did not say that if he performed no action in his capacity as Ishvara, all the worlds would fall apart. If this were the case, there would be no problem. We would all gain moksha because Ishvara turned lazy. This is the kind of translation that can happen if the word lokaha is not properly understood here. So lokaha here means people and not worlds. Krishna meant that the people would destroy themselves if they performed no karma. He also said that if he performed no action, he would be the author of confusion. Arjuna thought if he fought this battle, he would create utter confusion in the society. Arjuna thought and thereby incur sin. This is why he did not want to fight. Now Krishna was telling him that by not fighting, Arjuna would be creating confusion because the people would also not do what was to be done. So you see the difference between Arjuna's thinking and Krishna's thinking. Arjuna was he subjective or objective when he was thinking, I will cause confusion and thereby incur sin? He was being more subjective. Whereas Krishna was being objective. He says, you are a Kshatriya, you are fighting a dharma yuddha. Rather than fighting, if you want to take to arms or you want to take to sannyasa, you're going to create more confusion because people will follow you as a leader. You are not doing what is to be done and you're going to Rishikesh wearing orca robes. Then what will people do? They will follow you. They also will not do what is to be done. So in that way, it will cause confusion and you will incur sin. Knowing all this, Krishna knew that he himself had to set a good example. So therefore, when you extrapolate that, If Krishna he does not need to do any action. He is a jnani. If he did not do any action, then being followed by others, others will also not do any action. But they all are riddled with lot of ragas and dveshas. So if they don't do any action, what will happen to them? There will not be any progress, no evolution for them. Otherwise, he would be the cause of everyone's destruction. The people had to do their karmas. Not doing them and not going to help was not going to help them. They would not be happy not doing what was to be done by them. They may not have been very happy doing karma, but not doing it would be far worse. One big tamas, mass lethargy, would completely overtake the society. They may not have been very happy doing karma, but by not doing it would be far worse. See, example also, if you want to, a simple example is like brushing your teeth. When we were young and it was imposed upon us that you had to brush your teeth, initially it is a little difficult. No one wants to. A child, rebels, doesn't want to get his or her teeth brushed. But by not brushing, what will happen? It is even worse because you'll end up having dental caries. Same thing with your house, for example. You have to keep your house clean. Doing it does require some effort. It is not very happy, it does require little effort unless you're in love with, cleaning up the house. So there is that element of little bit of discomfort that you have to go through in order to do, for example, cleaning up your house. Now, for example, you do not clean up your house at all. What would happen? Dust will pile up and up and up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 week you've not cleaned it up at all. Then what will happen to the house? So, one big tamas mass lethargy would completely overtake the society. So, when we extrapolate this to the whole society, just imagine nobody is doing what they're supposed to do. Right? So, that is the state that would set in case Krishna did not do his prescribed action. Previously, Krishna had pointed out that when one's buddhi, the intellect, is gone, the human being is destroyed. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. This destruction is not physical. It is buddhi nasha, destruction of the intellect, the capacity to discriminate between what is and what is not. So, when earlier it is said, this leads to confusion. If Krishna does not do anything, it will lead to lokaha, the destruction of people. What is that destruction? Are they being destroyed? No, it is destruction of the intellect, the capacity to discriminate between what is and what is not, the capacity to be objective rather than subjective, to know the difference between these two. Krishna said that if the people did not do what was to be done, there would be buddhi nasha, meaning that all reasoning would be gone and they would no longer be human beings. Thus, simply because people always take what an exalted person in the society does as their model, Krishna would be the cause of their destruction if he did not perform karma. And what is this destruction that is being talked of? It is destruction of the intellect, of reasoning, of viveka. And by using Viveka, a person who has Viveka who's using it to the full, complete degree Viveka, he is being more and more objective. He is looking at things as they are. Anybody wants to share anything before we go on to the next verse? So further he said, Saktaha karmanya vidvamso yatha kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvams tatha saktaha chikirshirloka sangraham. Chikirshirloka sangraham. Bharata, O Bharata Arjuna, karmani, to action, saktaha, attached, avidvamsaha, the unwise, yatha, just as, kurvanti, perform action, tatha, so too, vidvan, the wise, loka sangraham, the protection of people, chikirshuhu, desirous of doing, asaktaha, unattached, kuryat, would perform. Bharata, karmani, saktaha, avidvamsaha, yatha kurvanti, tatha vidvan lokasangraham chikirshuhu asaktaha kuryat. O Bharata, just as the unwise who are attached to the results perform action, so too would the wise perform action without attachment, desirous of doing that which is for the protection of the people. Previously, Lord Krishna had said that he did not really have anything to be done because there was nothing for him to accomplish in all the three worlds, meaning here, on earth, in the heavens, or in any other world. This was because he knew himself to be everything, Sarvatma. Because Arjuna saw Krishna continually immersed in activity, Krishna explained that he performed action to set an example, as we have seen. Here in this verse, Lord Krishna asked Arjuna to suppose that he too were a knower of the Atma and Atmavit. Then he too would say, Hey Krishna, in all the three worlds, there is nothing for me to accomplish because I am an Atmavit. I know I am everything. And knowing this, Arjuna could then also perform action. He would have nothing to lose. He too would perform action for the sake of the people. Otherwise, he would be destroying them. The people did not know whether Arjuna knew or not. They only knew what he did. All they would see was Arjuna not doing what he was supposed to do and would simply conclude that not performing action is preferable. Once again, Krishna was bringing up the argument that the people would follow Arjuna's lead, and because of this, Arjuna should set an example. Keeping this in mind, Krishna addressed Arjuna here as Bharata, for which there are two meanings. A person born in the family of Bharata may be referred to as Bharata. Secondly, Bha means Brahma Vidya, knowledge of Brahman. And Tasyam Yaha Ramate, the one who revels in that, the knowledge of Brahman, is called Bharata. Therefore, Arjuna was Bharata in this sense also, because he was receiving and reveling in the teaching of Brahman. I'll repeat all of this one more time. So beautiful, the meaning, the explanation of the word Bharata is. One is simply that the literal meaning is the descendant of Bharata. The other one, Bha, means Brahma Vidya, and Tasyam Ramate. Tasyam Yah Ramate, the one who revels in the Brahma Vidya, is called Bharata. So when we say Bharat, India is called Bharat in Sanskrit. So the word Bharat itself is where people revel in, the country where people revel in Atma Jnana. And all of us are Bharatas. Bharatas or Bharatis.
Yeah, that spiritual quotient is so high in everyone, in this country. One thing.
Right. So in this verse, Vidwan means one who has this knowledge, and Avidwan is one who does not, taking the self to be a doer. Taking themselves to be the doer, people are bound to karma. See, here again, you're bringing in subjective and objective. A person who tends to take himself as a doer is being what? Subjective or objective? Is being subjective. That error that he or she is born of from ajnana is so rooted in that he or she looks upon himself or herself as a doer. They do not even perform action for the sake of antakarana shuddhi, but with the expectation that if I perform this action, I will gain this result. This expectation, this attitude is what is meant by attachment to karma. Action itself is not what people are attached to. They are attached to the results. Because people are interested in results, they undertake certain actions with a combination of enthusiasm, anxiety, and concern. What Krishna was saying here is, let the Vidwan, the wise person, perform action with the same enthusiasm as a person who performs action for the results alone. Thus, the enthusiasm is a common factor between the two, whereas the anxiety and concern are not. I'll read this whole thing again. Okay. A person who is I will read further and come back here. A person who is attached to the results of action thinks, such and such should happen to me. For this person, there is no karma yoga buddhi, which is prasada buddhi with regard to results. The terms dictating the action are purely ragadveshas. The kartavya buddhi, the to be done attitude, is not there for the person. When such people undertake activities, there is definitely going to be enthusiasm in anticipation of the results desired. But this enthusiasm will be dampened somewhat by the apprehension one has about getting undesirable results. Because there are no real guarantees that the action will produce the desired results, some anxiety will always be there. And the more enthusiastic a person is with reference to the result, the more anxious he or she naturally becomes. Therefore, for one who does not know oneself as everything, anxiety accompanies enthusiasm, and with these, the person performs action. Very beautiful. So you see the train of thought, one who is attached to the results of action, one who is a karmi rather than a karma yogi. Both perform action with the same enthusiasm, but one is attached to the results, the other is only seeking antakarana shuddhi. So let me just read this part one more time. I'll read all of this. So, O Bharata, just as the unwise who are attached to the results perform action, so too would the wise perform action without attachment, desirous of doing that which is for the protection of the people. So, the previous verse we saw how if the wise do not perform action, how that leads to confusion and destruction of the people. Destruction there meant destruction of the Viveka. So instead of doing what is to be done, they take recourse to inaction that will lead to a lot of a mass of tamas. Here, Krishna is further elaborating the attitude with which action has to be done. Attitude with the attitude with which actions are done by the wise versus the unwise. And when we say wise, wise is who? The one who realizes himself or herself to be the non-doer. Whereas the unwise are those, the ajnanis are those that they take themselves to be the doer. Previously, Lord Krishna had said that he did not really have anything to be done because there was nothing for him to accomplish in all the three worlds, meaning here on earth, in the heavens, or in any other world. This was because he knew himself to be everything, Sarvatma. Because Arjuna saw Krishna continually immersed in activity, Krishna explained that he performed action to set an example, as we have seen. Here in this verse, Lord Krishna asked Arjuna to suppose that he too were a knower of the Atma and Atmavid. Then he too could say, Hey Krishna, in all the three worlds, there is nothing for me to accomplish because I am an Atmavid. I know I am everything. And knowing this, Arjuna could then also perform action. He would have nothing to lose. He too would perform action for the sake of the people, otherwise, he would be destroying them. The people did not know whether Arjuna knew or not. They only knew what he did. That is why they say actions speak louder than words, right? So what we do is more important than what we say. Because that is what people see, right? That is why a leader is one who walks the talk. A leader is not a leader if he or she says something and does something different. All they would see was Arjuna not doing what he was supposed to do and would simply conclude that not performing action is preferable. Once again, Krishna was bringing up the argument that people would follow Arjuna's lead, and because of this, Arjuna should set an example. Keeping this in mind, Krishna addressed Arjuna here as Bharata, for which there are two meanings. A person born in the family of Bharata may be referred to as Bharata, and the other one is Bha, meaning Brahma Vidya, knowledge of Brahman, and Tasyan Yaha Ramate, the one who revels in that. The knowledge of Brahman is called Bharata. Therefore, Arjuna was Bharata in this sense also, because he was receiving and reveling in the teaching of Brahman. In the second chapter, he asks Krishna, right?
Extend your hand.
Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. Because he's desirous of Shreyas. He says, I do not know what is teach me Shreyas. So since Arjuna is being taught Brahma Vidya and he is reveling in it, he is Bharata. In this verse, Vidwan means one who has this knowledge, and Avidwan is one who does not, taking the self to be a doer. Taking themselves to be the doer. See, this is the ultimate, right? The fundamental mistake, the fundamental error is that we take ourselves to be the doer. So that is an avidwan. Taking themselves to be the doer. So when we take ourselves to be the karta, we are also the bhokta. But when you see the world from, when a person who's realized, a vidwan is one who looks at him as a non-doer, a karta, and therefore he is a bhokta. So the more and more you are closer to this akartritvam, the less and less you are affected by the world and the results of your actions. So taking themselves to be the doer, people are bound to karma. They do not even perform action for the sake of antakarana shuddhi, but with the expectation that if I perform this action, I will gain this result. This expectation, this attitude is what is meant by attachment to karma. Action itself is not what people are attached to. They are attached to the results. Because people are interested in results, they undertake certain actions with a combination of enthusiasm, anxiety, and concern. How beautifully it has been explained. It's a combination of enthusiasm, anxiety, and concern. Anxiety about the results. What Krishna was saying here is, let the Vidwan, the wise person, perform action with the same enthusiasm as the person who performs action for the results alone. Thus, the enthusiasm is a common factor between the two, whereas the anxiety and concern are not. So, Krishna is goading Arjuna, perform action with that enthusiasm. Vigatajvaraha. He says, do it without that craving, without that anxiety about the results. But don't just do action just for the sake of action. Just because you're a leader, you have to don't do it that way. Do it with enthusiasm. A person who is attached to the results of action thinks, such and such should happen to me. For this person, there is no karma yoga buddhi, which is prasada buddhi, with regard to results. The terms dictating the action are purely ragadveshas. I want this to happen to me, or I don't want this to happen to me, and therefore I perform this action. So he's performing the action with enthusiasm, no doubt, but it comes with that tail of anxiety, concern, raga, dvesha, bhaya. All of that is mixed up in his enthusiasm of an avidwan, of a karma yogi. Whereas a karma yogi does it with the prasada buddhi. Doesn't matter what the result of action is. The terms dictating the action are purely raga dveshas. The kartavya buddhi, the to be done attitude, is not there for the person. When such people undertake activities, there is definitely going to be enthusiasm in anticipation of the results desired. But this enthusiasm will be dampened somewhat by the apprehension one has about getting undesirable results. because there are no real guarantees that the action will produce the desired results. Some anxiety will always be there. And the more enthusiastic a person is with reference to the result, the more anxious he or she naturally becomes. Therefore, for one who does not know oneself as everything, anxiety accompanies enthusiasm, and with these, the person performs action. So, having the prasada buddhi versus ragadvesha buddhi. Ragadvesha and bhaya buddhi. It distinguishes a person who is a vidwan, who is a karma yogi versus an akarma yogi. Enthusiasm being a common factor. See, even a karmi sets out to do an action with that enthusiasm. Enthusiasm for what? Not just for the action, not for the kartavya buddhi. He's not doing it out of that enthusiasm of saying, oh, this is my duty, I have to do it. He is doing it because if I do this, I will get this and this result in anticipation of the result. Whereas a karma yogi is doing it because it has to be done, kartavya buddhi, and he has prasada buddhi. No matter what the result, he does not have anticipation, he does not have concern about the result, because whatever the result, he takes it with that prasada buddhi. Attitude in action. Why is it that the wise can undertake action with the same enthusiasm but without the anxiety and concern? This is purely because of a difference in attitude. A wise person performs action simply because it is to be done. How a result comes or whether the expected result comes is not a concern for the wise. When the result comes, it is met with equanimity. That prasada buddhi, samatva bhavana. Action is always result oriented. No one can perform an action without expecting a result. Expectation of a particular result alone makes the action meaningful. An action performed without expecting a result is meaningless. An action is always done for some purpose, even if it is kartavya or to be done action. Thus, the purpose of any action is always known, whereas whether the purpose is going to be fulfilled is definitely anyone's guess. The results are not in your hands. You can only plan what you will do, then do it, and keep on doing it. But the results of the actions are not within your control. Thus, Krishna said here that if Arjuna was an Atmavit, a Vidwan, he would perform whatever action was to be done by him with the same enthusiasm as people who are attached to the results, but without the attachment. In other words, minus the anxiety and heartburn. Very beautiful, right? See, what's coming to my mind is the current scenario here, the war that is going on. Now, we are praying, we are doing, meditations, and we're coming together, chanting and praying. Now, if we're doing it with that enthusiasm. But if the purpose of doing is to get a desired result, and what is that? That peace prevails soon, the sooner. That ceasefire is announced and everything goes back to earlier, the pre-war situation. But if the war keeps getting prolonged for whatever reason, if one's enthusiasm is dampened, then what is it? Then we are not doing it with that karma yoga buddhi. Irrespective of the result, if you continue doing what you're doing with that enthusiasm, with that samatva buddhi, prasada buddhi, then you are less and less attached to the results. Then the raga dveshas start getting neutralized. Because it is an action to be done, you're doing it. So this is the attitude of a wise person. The wise perform action to bless the world. Why, you may ask, does a wise person perform action if he or she is not interested in the result? No one is saying that the person must perform action, but the question is, what does he or she lose by doing it? In fact, nothing is lost, and there is a lot to be gained in terms of protecting others. It is true that the gain is not for the wise person, but there is nothing wrong with that. Let the others be protected and enjoy the gain. For a wise person who knows he or she is everything, there is nothing to gain, nothing to accomplish. I'll repeat this again. Why, you may ask, does a wise person perform action if he or she is not interested in the result? No one is saying that the person must perform action, but the question is, what does he or she lose by doing it? In fact, nothing is lost, but there is a lot to be gained in terms of protecting others. Go back to the verse previously saying, Krishna says, if I do not do action in the three worlds, in the three lokaha will get destroyed. People will get destroyed because they follow me as an example, as a role model. Right? So by doing it, Krishna is actually protecting others. It is true that the gain is not for the wise person, but there is nothing wrong with that. Let the others be protected and enjoy the gain. For a wise person who knows he or she is everything, there is nothing to gain, nothing to accomplish. Also, the example of Gurudev doing all these homas, yajnas, Rudra Puja, he does not need to do. But why does he do? To set an example. He sits in Rudra Puja, everyone follows, everyone is there meditating. If he were to take that stance of saying, oh, I don't need to do Rudra Puja, he does not need actually to do. He does not gain anything because he's everything. But he's doing it. His action is protecting others. One who wants to do something is called chikirshu. Chikirshu is kartum ichuhu, one who desires to do. This is the beauty of Sanskrit, because every word is expanded into its meaning. Chikirshu is kartum ichuhu. The desire spoken of here is to protect the people, loka sangraha. Those who want to perform action, even though they have nothing to accomplish for themselves, do not want the people to fall into ways that are non-productive and destructive. Therefore, to bless the world, to serve as an example to the world, the wise perform action. What else is there to do for a person who has nothing to do but to set an example, thereby protecting the people? This is why Krishna was on the battlefield, in fact, driving Arjuna's chariot. Krishna was definitely taking a risk sitting in the front seat of the chariot. He was the one who would be bombarded. Every arrow would have to cross his head and shoulders before finding its way to Arjuna. Krishna could well be hit in the process. Being a charioteer is something like being a tank driver. Even though other men are using the weapons, the driver is risking his life. Thus, Krishna was as much as saying to Arjuna, I am your driver and therefore I am taking a great risk. I have actually given you my neck, in fact. Why? For the protection of the order, the dharma, and thereby for the protection of the people. Dharma itself is not something that has to be protected. To think so would be idealism. In fact, it is the dharmis, the people who follow the dharma, that are to be protected. There is no such thing as the protection of dharma other than the people who follow it. The dharma, the order, is meant for the people. Thus, when it is said that the dharma is to be protected, what is meant is that the people are to be protected. So it is not dharma as a concept that needs to be protected. That will become idealism. What is to be protected is people, those who follow dharma. The dharmis are to be protected. Krishna had made it very clear that there were no kartavya, to be done action for him or for anyone who has the knowledge of Atma. There is no mandate that says you should continue to do karma. Whatever an Atmavid does is only for the blessing of others, of the world. This is all that he or she does. This being the contention, Krishna told Arjuna that he should determine what is to be done for the good of the people alone. And then he should do it. If Arjuna were to tell the people that there is no action to be done, kartavyam nasti, it would be wrong. And if he set a wrong example by performing no action himself, others would be disturbed. As a word of advice to those who already have knowledge of the self, this theme was repeated by Krishna in the next verse. So we'll stop here. So let's just reflect upon what we listened to and understood, and let's all share. Maybe we'll repeat this verse again tomorrow and go to verse 26.
So, Dr. Brahma, I was able to listen what wise person doing the action, right? Without that concern or anxiety.
Correct.
And whereas, but he does it with enthusiasm without expecting any result, but then that to protect people.
Yeah.
But then the other one, I forgot. I kind of lost it. Like I probably lost in the middle. Like listen, what was the other aspect you read? Like the other person, like karma yoga person or karmi person?
Karmi does it he does actions anticipating results.
Result, right?
So he has that
Maybe.
anxiety concern, and he becomes like a yo-yo. If he gets what he wants, he is very elated. If he does not get what he wants, he is depressed.
Yeah. So
Whereas
that's what we read in the end. Huh?
in the end, yeah,
Okay, got it.
the one we read in the end was attitude in action,
Mm,
wise performed to bless the world.
right.
So
Mm,
if Arjuna did not do his action, here
mm.
the whole point is about Arjuna not wanting
Arjuna.
to do his action, right?
Right.
So Krishna is goading Arjuna to do his action,
Mm-hmm.
kartavyam, to be done action, so that if he does not do, for example, he is setting a wrong example for the others to follow.
Mm,
If Arjuna were to tell people that there is no action to be done, kartavyam nasti, it would be wrong. And if he set a wrong example by performing no action himself, others would be disturbed.
right.
As a word of advice to those who already have knowledge of the self, this theme was repeated. Yeah, in the next verse. That we'll see tomorrow. So, one is action versus inaction. Whether action needs to be done, why it needs to be done. Very beautifully, Krishna explained. Krishna says in the previous verses, he says, Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana. Nana vaptam avaptavyam vartsevacha vartmani. So I do not have anything to do to gain in these three worlds. Yet I continue to perform action. Why? Only to protect people. Because if I did not do action, people will think, oh, Krishna did not do, so I also don't need to do. But the difference between Krishna and others, Krishna is a jnani, he is an atmavit. Others are riddled with avidya, lot of raga dveshas. So they will continue to live that way and eventually get destroyed. Destruction here means lack of viveka. Buddhi nashat pranashat. The buddhi nasha happens. Whereas when they start doing action, there are two ways when they start doing action. They can do action with an attitude of a karmi or that of a karma yogi. So if they do action like a karmi, then they're getting bound to karma. But he calls Arjuna Bharata, that is reveling in Brahma Vidya. So a person who's reveling in this Brahma Vidya, or say a karma yogi, he does perform action with the same enthusiasm, but without attachment to the results. So why action needs to be done and what attitude the action needs to be done is very clearly spelled out. Anybody wants to share? So shall we close here if there is nobody else wanting to share? So tomorrow we'll go through verse 25 again and then go to verse 26. So we are on page 471. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Jai Gurudev. Let me just play the
meditation is accepting this moment, living every moment totally with depth. Let us keep our spine erect and body relaxed and eyes closed. Relax your shoulders. Keep a big smile on your face. You're sitting like the statue of Buddha, very serene and with a serene smile on your face. Relax your body. Let's take a deep breath in and breathe out. Become aware of your chest region, throat and chest region. If you notice some tension in the body, just let it be. Except those parts of the body where you feel a tension, the other parts are in comfort. Other parts are at peace. Become aware of that also. There are many good things about you and inside of you. Acknowledge them. They will never leave you. And the negative aspect you may see in you is never going to stay with you forever. They are all guests for some time. Let them be. Sit with the total acceptance of yourself the way you are at this very moment. Total acceptance of what is now here will lead us to deeper meditation. Let go of all the efforts. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let go of all your effort and be in this emptiness. And slowly and gradually become aware of body and surroundings. And you may gently open your eyes.
Shatradev.